friends, welcome back to my channel. We're here today for a Friday Reads update. Since the beginning of February, I've been reading a lot. I've been reading a lot of books about Black history. I've been reading a ton, but I haven't been finishing a lot. I've only finished 3 things since the beginning of the month, and it's February 11th. So my progress is not going as well as I'd like it to, but I kind of banked a little bit last month. Last month I read more than I needed to in order to make my goal for the year, I guess. So I could kind of slow down, but I'm not. I've been reading a lot, like I said, and everything that I've been reading is just fantastic. Like, I'm having an excellent reading month. So I'm not pushing, I'm not speeding, I'm just enjoying what I'm reading, and isn't that the point? So I'm going to tell you about the books that I have finished. I'm going to tell you about the books that I am still reading. And I'm going to tell you about a couple of books that are on my radar for upcoming reading. But before we do all of that, I must tell you my reading highlights for the week. So I had a conversation with Shawn the Book Maniac a few weeks ago. And he filmed our conversation for one of his bite-sized book chats that he does on his channel. And so our conversation has been featured in his most recent bite-sized book chat video. So I'm going to link that down below so you can go check it out. If you don't already watch Shawn the Book Maniac's channel, go check him out. He does some wonderful things over on his channel, not least of which is, my appearance. So I was on there talking about a book that I read in December that I loved, and that was kind of on his radar because he has communication with the translator. The book, why am I being so cryptic? The book was Blue by Emily Prophet, and the translator is Tina Cover, and Shawn knows her or talks to her. So that came up this week. So go check out that video. Aside from that, I got some wonderful books, but I'll show you that at the end. So yeah, books that I've been finishing, books that I've finished since the beginning of February. First was If Beale Street Could Talk. Let's try that again. First book that I finished in February was If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin. I've been wanting to read more James Baldwin. I've so far only read his essays. I read I'm Not Your Negro and I read The Fire Next Time, but I hadn't really finished any of his novels. So I read If Beale Street Could Talk and I loved it. It is a story set in Harlem in the, I guess, 1950s, 1960s, I can't recall. But it's interesting because we have a male author writing from the perspective of a female, a teenage girl narrator. And I think he does a really brilliant job of it because he is capturing the atmosphere of Harlem in this time. And our main character, like I said, is a late teenage girl, and she's in a relationship with a young man who they've been friends, they've been neighbors and friends since childhood. And as they've gotten into their late teens, early 20s, they have started a romantic relationship. They're engaged to be married, and he gets accused of a crime and he's in jail, and it's about her and her family and his family's response to it. And it's not about the crime. It's not even about their relationship. The book is primarily about the atmosphere, the people and the things and the culture that is around them. And I love his representation. I have read a lot of books with women announcing that they're pregnant, and this is the most moving I have ever read, the most moving scene I have ever read of a girl telling her mother and the rest of her family that she's expecting a child. I had another moving scene in another book by a Black author. A couple of years ago, I read Confessions in B Flat by Donna Hill, and I loved that. But this was a reason to read the book. If you haven't yet read If Beale Street Could Talk, I don't know what the movie version, the adaptation is like because I haven't yet watched it. Maybe I will now that I've read the book. But if you haven't yet read the novel, this is a reason to read it. I'm not spoiling the book for you because, I'm not spoiling the book. But when you read the scene about how this girl tells her mother and her father. And there are some negative things about the reaction. Don't get me wrong, because, these people are not monoliths, or the Black experience is not a monolith. So all the characters have their own individual preferences and their own individual thoughts, and they express those. But this scene was just so moving, so rich, so profound that I love. I love the books. I finished it, loved it, gave it 5 stars, I think. I can't think of a reason not to give the book 5 stars. So yeah, that was the first thing that I finished in February. And I don't even know if this book was on my TBR, because who's even keeping up with the TBR these days? But I wanted to read more James Baldwin. I think I may add him to my list of authors that I want to read everything they've published. I'm going to be sharing that with you in a video that I filmed recently that's going to come up on the channel in a couple of days, which is my reading journal flip through. I share some of the authors that I'm reading through their entire catalog. And I think I'm adding James Baldwin to that list because I love this book. The next book that I read was The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. Elizabeth Acevedo is a woman of Latina heritage. Her parents are from the Dominican Republic, and I think her Wikipedia page says that she is a citizen of the DR, even though I think she was born in the United States. But it doesn't matter. That's aside. That's an aside. So this book is about a teenage Latina girl living in Harlem again. So first 2 books on my list were set in Harlem. So hey, book links. But yeah, so we're reading about this girl, and she is living in Harlem, and she's a teenager coming of age and questioning some of the truths that have been taught to her by her parents and her church, and trying to make her own decisions about, how she feels about life. And her parents or her mother is trying to force her to accept the Catholic religion, and she's not so sure that she's ready for all of that. And it's about her expressing her thoughts in poetry. So we're reading this book, which is like reading through her journal. And so as she becomes more comfortable expressing her thoughts, the quality of the poems change, the quality of the verse becomes even more expressive. And it is emotional, it is angry, it is lustful, it is interested, it is questioning, it is everything. I love this book. I loved it. So I don't think it was a perfect book. It is, I guess, written for a YA audience, but I loved it. Like I just felt for the character. I felt like I was seeing the character, was learning about this character, was inhabiting the space that this character was filling out. And even as the people in her life were kind of trying to squash her spirit and squelch her emotional expressions, like not just her mother, because they're painting the mother as the evil one, but not just her mother, like her twin brother and her best friend, wanting her to just kind of dim her light, so that she wouldn't get in trouble, so that they wouldn't all get in trouble by extension. And isn't that another way of squashing someone's spirit? Because why can't we express ourselves? So I loved how the author portrayed this teenage character, representing what this young lady was going through, her experiences in school and at home and in between. And I loved it. So yeah, that's the second book that I read, another 5-star rating. So yeah, having a fantastic reading month. So then I read both of those as e-copies, Kindle downloads from my library. And so then I had to read a print book. So this was a buddy read that I had scheduled with Patrice Jones. And so we've been checking in, and we're not finished with our buddy reads check-in, but I got to a point yesterday where I just couldn't stop reading, so I finished it. So we haven't talked about the final 3 or so chapters of the book, so I won't go into too much detail about my experience, at least with that part of the book, but I love this. This is the Autobiography of an Excolored Man by James Weldon Johnson. And it's interesting because from the title, I expect, we expect that this is a memoir, but the back of the book calls it a novel. So James Weldon Johnson, Patrice just shared with me today, he actually has a book which is his actual autobiography. So I think there are points in this book that are fictionalized events that happened to him, but we don't actually know that. He could just be, I don't know. So that's something that we have to explore later. But I love this. I love the writing. I love how he captures racial tension and racial expression in the early 1900s. This book was first published in 1912. So it's 110 years old. But it gives this glimpse into what was happening at the time, and not just racial tension in the South. We see this young man growing up in Connecticut. His mother is black and his father is white, and we see how he he becomes aware of his mixed identity. We see how he gets an opportunity to choose certain things based on his appearance. And there are points in his life where he's sheltered. There are things that he would have been sheltered from just from growing up in the North. But he travels to the South and what that's like, a little bit of his naivety, but also his desire for experiences. And I can't gush enough about this book. Like there was a point in my life when I used to write notes in my book, and then I stopped doing that. I would, if I felt like I needed to take a note, I would write it on a post-it and stick it in the book. And then this book made me want to write things in it. So that's what I did. Notes. Like he makes comments and he just kind of throws things down. And so, yeah, notes in this book, which I had not done in years. But it was such a freeing experience. And then I got to the point in the last couple of chapters where I couldn't stay long enough to write notes. I was just like flipping pages. I was like, I need to know what happens. So I had to read it until the end. So yeah, we will come back and discuss this, I think, in more length. So those are the 3 books that I finished. Other books that I am currently reading, I'm reading Black Boy by Richard Wright and loving it. We're getting a little bit of autobiography / recollection told by an adult of their youth, and I don't know how much of that is actually remembered, how much of that is imagined and details being filled in from conversations with other people. So there's a little bit about this that is kind of like this, I don't know. So we'll get into this when I talk more about it. I think I'll be finished with this next week so we can talk about it more in detail. And I am still reading All That She Carried by Tiya Miles and still loving it. What else am I reading? I started reading Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney, and I'm loving the beginning. I read her Normal People a couple of years ago, and I did not like that book. I couldn't understand why people had said they liked it. Like, I think it was on Obama's best of the year list. And I was like, are we reading the same book? And maybe I need to go back and reread that, because this, I think, is a lot of the same kind of writing style, but this is just, it's gripping me so much more. It is about 2 best friends from college, and they still live together in their late 20s, early 30s. And the 2 men that they are kind of involved with, one is involved with someone she knew when he was a boy. He had grown up kind of close to her. And the other lady, I don't know what their relationship will get into. So I'm going to say the man that's attached to her is someone that she has just met on Tinder. And what Sally Rooney does is she takes these just basic commonplace experiences and writes them so you feel like you are actually living in this space, inhabiting the space with these characters and seeing all the banal, trivial details, but it is centering this story so well. It just feels I don't know if it is atmospheric. It just feels like it is so well defined because of all the details that Sally Rooney is capturing. So I don't know where the story is going. I don't know if I'm going to continue to love it. I'm about page 70 or so, and the book is about close to 300 pages. So I have a lot more book to read and be impressed by or not. So we'll see. And I also just started The Book of Harlan by Bernice L. McFadden. And I'm not far enough into that yet to give you a full impression, but I'm loving what I'm reading so far. Her writing is just so impressive. She has these similes that, I don't know, like it feels like she's been a writer for several hundred years, and she's just comfortable telling this story. I don't know at what point in her catalog Bernice L. McFadden wrote The Book of Harlan, but I love it. I love what I have read so far. I'm going to flash a couple of the quotes on the screen because I love it and I think you'll love it when you see it too. So yeah, that's what I'm reading. So aside from that, I got this arc from the publishers. This is Something Good by Vanessa Miller. This is from HarperCollins Publishers. So I don't know yet exactly how this is going to go, but I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, that's how I'm doing with my reading. Having a fantastic reading month so far, loving everything. I haven't yet read any of my booktube prize books, so that's coming. I haven't touched my book club book, so that's coming. So that's what we'll be talking about in my next Friday Reads video, so look out for that next week. But for now, let me know in the comments down below what you're reading, how your reading is going, if you're doing a lot of Black History Month reading, and how you're finding your books. If you are loving the books as much as I am loving the books. Not that we're reading the same books, but you know what I mean. So yeah, let's chat down there. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more. Let's chat in the comments. And until next time, happy reading. Bye. First was If Beale Street Could Talk. If Beale Street... Let's try that again. First book that I finished in February was If Beale Street Could Talk